Well, the time is just gone 19 minutes past 8 as we kick off this morning and taking a look at a very disturbing issue. And this is with regard to gang violence in Cape Town, where over 60 young victims have been killed in 5 months in Cape Town. And we are now joined by Director of Molo, Songololo, Patric Solomon, to provide us with an insight because these 63 Western Cape children have killed not by strangers, but their lives have actually been taken. And the cause for death, for most of the part, is gang violence. And this is in various, in fact, areas right across Cape Town. Patrick, good morning to you and welcome to the show.
Hi, good morning to you and to your listeners.
Yes, clearly, these numbers obviously speak volumes and of major concern, where we see a young children that have now been killed, and we're talking of 63 in the space of 5 months. How big a concern is this, Patrick?
It is a massive concern. The children are being killed every day, and unfortunately, a large number of them are down here in Cape Town have been killed because of gang-related violence. As you stated, about 63 children within 5 months have been killed because of direct related gang violence. So that is a very, very high number. And so it's over 12 children a month basically have been killed. Um, so it's quite shocking, it's quite upsetting, it's very traumatizing, and unfortunately, this is the situation that many children have been living with through many generations down here in the Cape in relation to gang-related scenarios. The most unfortunate thing is that they are born within these kinds of situations, and they are socialized. They have to live within this kind of gang culture, and where killing of people happens quite regularly, and where they witness it. And unfortunately, sometimes they are also victims, direct victims, and fatal stabbings and shootings as a cause of their death. Um, Quite a number of them are caught up in the crossfire, but we've also had cases where they were direct targets as well. So it is very, very serious. The situation, it seems as if it is increasing, and we are very, very worried because our law enforcement doesn't seem to be able to address the issue effectively around policing and investigations. We have major challenges there. Often the killers are known to the community, but they are not being apprehended. Um, there's also seems to be a great lack of intelligence by the police, intelligence gathering in terms of understanding exactly what happened, who is doing what, why are things happening. Because a lot of these killings are because of rivalry, because of territorial issues that happen, because of extortion, and also simply because of they had some beef. One person had beef with another person who might or might not belong to the gang, or is territorial related between operations, because gangs also engage in money-making operations, whether it's drugs, selling of drugs and alcohol, or any other operations. And this often is a cause of many of these killings. And then,
Mm.
of course, also there's the whole issue of guns. Guns are so readily available. Not so long ago, a 12-year-old was boasting about having a gun. Um, so that is a big problem that we find also. And then, of course, the other level is that our prosecutions and sentencing, many of these killers, and they go to jail, they are prosecuted and sentenced, but in a couple of years' time, then they're out again or back on the street, and some of them are repeated offenders. Um, so it is not a new problem. And I think the challenge for us is how do we deal with it? How do we address it, and how do we prevent these things from happening? So that is a big challenge. The unfortunate thing, like I've mentioned earlier on, is these so-called gangs and the people that is harming our children are living with our children, and they are also parents. They are also brothers and sisters. They live in the homes, in the streets, in the communities where children are being killed, and the children know them. The families of the children know exactly who killed them. So we are in a very, very toxic scenario, um, and unfortunately, our children are suffering and our children are dying. So the
Yes,
prevention
Patrick.
aspect we need to give attention.
Mm. As you mentioned, toxic and obviously challenging, and the mere fact that many of these children are actually caught up in the situation, and as you mentioned, are deeply embedded within these communities, so gives them a very little chance to actually escape from this toxic environment that you are speaking of, and the mere fact that as you said, these gangs are not strangers. They are people that give birth to these children. They feed these children. They care for these children. And these children are part of their daily life. So they're actually a fabric of the society within which they live. And this makes it even more challenging and more difficult.
Yeah, that is correct. And therefore, I'm like, we need to really, really address some of the systemic issues that we have in South Africa. And that is one, the issue of poverty, of course, and that is a big problem because gangs feed on people who are in economic stress scenarios, and that they then become an alternative source of survival, of income, of putting food on the table. So that is something that we need to address. We need to make sure that there's jobs and livelihoods for people. We need to make sure that we're able to improve on education. Our indicators are very, very poor. Children must be in schools. Children need to receive a good education. Then we also need to make sure that there are services. A lot of these communities where children are being killed are overcrowded, poorly serviced communities, lack of resources communities. There's a lack of infrastructure. There's also infrastructural challenges and problems like poor roads, poor housing, poor sanitation, poor refuge removal systems in place, and and so that a large number of our children also live in situations where they don't have access to electricity, to running water, flush toilets in the informal settlements. So it is a massive, massive problem that we have. We are not addressing these challenges effectively and speedily enough. So like this, um, social intervention is also lacking. We have situations where services, in some of our communities that we work, we find that some of our partner organizations and government services, even police, wouldn't go into certain areas. Um, and then and so children don't get the help and assistance that they need. Families don't get the help and assistance that they need. We're in a very, very difficult situation, and we need to declare an emergency around these issues, and we need to have a coordinated response with all levels of government, all levels of civil society to address the issue of violence and crime. And then, of course, that must go hand in hand with an effective program of poverty alleviation, and improving the livelihoods of families and communities. So, we've got lots and lots of work to do. And it's unfortunate that this weekend coming, we're going to have more children who would be killed. And that is the sad part about it, that there will be babies, there will be young children, and there would be teenagers. The other thing is that a lot of teenagers are also roped into becoming offenders and perpetrators. So that is also something that is very, very scary at the moment.
Well, it certainly is scary because it's horrific, when one looks at the statistics and, you've made reference to certain statistics in the article talking about children aged between 15 to 17 accounting for 71% of the murders, 11% between the ages of 11 and 14, and 11% were aged up to the age of 5. Now these statistics are horrific, but also at the same time, it's a fertile breeding ground for recruitment of children into gangs even before they become teenagers. And you make also mention, and this is horrific, that by the time a child is 4 or 5 years old, they already have an allegiance to certain kinds of groups and gangs.
Yeah, that is correct. Because the thing is, what we often, you know, don't get right is that we assume that the gangs are sort of, you know, um, outside of the community, outside of people's lives, outside of children's lives. They are not. They are a part and parcel of the community fabric, as you expressed it earlier on. And therefore, we need to understand that. So children are being socialized within a gang culture. So by the time they are, 4 and 5 years of age, they can identify who belongs to what gang, for example. They can differentiate between, who is a gangster and who's not a gangster. So that is something that we need to address, and that and then of course also we need to work with affected communities and also empower affected communities to reduce and to prevent. So and I think that is some of the challenges that we have, that many of the affected communities don't have the power to make meaningful interventions, and therefore we need to begin to create awareness, educate, organize, and then make strategic interventions. And that can only happen if we provide people with alternatives, and the alternatives will come because of alternative livelihoods, sustainable jobs for people, making sure that children are in school, that their education is effective, that they go up to matric level, and there are job opportunities, and that for the young and the youth, and that and that there are recreational activities, sports, and a whole range of services must be available. Because if you don't have those things, people are going to turn to what is easy available to them, and that is being roped into a gang culture. And
Yes.
and that is something that we need to give more and more attention, and we need to. And I think the South African government is facilitating a people's-led national dialogue at the moment, and I think these are some of the conversations that we need to have with those affected communities also. What is the alternative for you? How would you want to prevent these things from happening, from your children being killed? What is it that you can do? What is it that the municipalities should do and must do, and the government at provincial and national level must do? How will you, change things within your own local community, keeping children safe? And then, of course, also, how do we engage children and young people so that
Mhm.
they can also come up with solutions, that can work for them, and not talking down, down at them. So those are some of the strategies that I think that we need to address. Having this kind of dialogue, engaging people, finding solutions within local communities, with 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 children, with parents, with young people, with families. For example, I remember Marienburg and some other communities adopted what they refer to as the walking bus. So that is a great initiative where community members, parents, walk their children to and from school to make sure that they're safe. But that is not the only one. Well, it's got to be matched with other kind of interventions as well, so that we can reduce the violence and we can prevent the violence.
Yes, Patrick. In fact, I hear what you're saying, and obviously it's an issue that's not easy, but it does require urgent attention, in urgent interventions, as you mentioned as well. But time obviously is of the essence, and we would love to talk a lot more. But we thank you for taking time out this morning with us right here on Solar Media. All the best to you, and I'm sure we will stay updated on the situation, and you will keep us updated. We do
Yeah.
appreciate your
Thanks
time.
for
All the
having
best.
me. All the best to you and your listeners.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Patrick Solomon, Director of Molo Songololo, joining us this morning. Serious concern with regard to shattered childhoods, over 60 young victims in 5 months in Cape Town, and most of it, or almost all of it, is related to gang related killings.